I am going to talk about a forgotten classic, a band that put out a couple albums in the late 80s, early 90s, and then called it a day. They've recently, within the last 5 years, gotten back together, done a little touring, talked about going back into the studio and recording an album that they were working on and never recorded back in the day. The band is D.A.M, short for Destruction and Mayhem. They formed in 1986, and they were a band till 1992. They called it a day, and then recently in 2012, with the reissues that came out on D.A.M Records, it looks like they decided to maybe give it another run. So the band had 2 albums total. The first one, Human Wreckage, was on Noise Records. I believe it was 1990. And it was reissued in 2012 by D.A.M Records. They did make a video for Human Wreckage. And if you want to seek out, I mean, I'm sure you can find it on YouTube, but just for kicks, it is actually featured on Doomsday News, More Cutting Edge Metal, VHS. I don't know if they ever put this out on DVD, but there's a lot of cool bands on this VHS, and one of which is Destruction and Mayhem for Human Wreckage. It was produced by Harris Johns, and there's a list, and I will only touch on a few. I had to write them down, so I'm going to read a little bit here. He has worked with Angel Dust on Into the Dark Past, Assassin, Celtic Frost on Tragic Serenades EP, Coroner, Death Row, Gravedigger, Grinder, early Halloween stuff with Kai Hansen, Hobbs Angel of Death's first album, early Creator, early Sodom, Tankard, Voivod, just to name a few. Calhoun Conquer, I know he was listed in there. That's an early, I want to say, kind of a death thrash band from like 1990. They're another one I may feature later. But the man was all over the place in the early 80s or early 90s. And even later, he did some stuff with some of the Swedish bands that were coming out, some of the Swedish death metal bands that came out in the early 90s as well. That was their first album, 1990, Human Wreckage. They did a second album in 1991 called Inside Out, and it was also on Noise Records initially. And it also was reissued by D.A.M Records. Now, they were both reissued in 2012, so I couldn't tell you how difficult it would be to get those now if they are long out of print. I know that they were limited editions, so very likely they sold out. When D.A.M does a reissue, they go all out. So some people want the originals. I don't imagine that Noise Records, those were probably pressed quite a few times. So I don't imagine they would cost you a lot. You might find them on eBay or Discogs for in the $20 range. I can't imagine they would cost you more than that. I haven't really looked because I've owned the CDs for so long. There's really not been any need for me to look, but I wouldn't imagine it would cost you that much to get the original pressing. D.A.M, if he still has them, his prices are really reasonable, and he does an awesome job. Matt does a great job with reissues. He gets the band involved, and they add new artwork and just do all sorts of stuff. Sometimes they throw in demos, and I don't know for sure what they did with these because I don't own them, but it would definitely be worth checking out. The band themselves, just kind of looking at they're from England, they're from the UK, and just listening to the sound of the band, they're a thrash band, and it's really comparable to a lot of the stuff that was out around that time in the UK, like Zentrix. You have bands like, let's say, Slammer, Acid Rain, Reanimator, maybe Onslaught, although Onslaught was just a little bit more dark. Just listening to the albums, it's the kind of thrash. It's not balls out, buzzing guitar the whole time. To me, it's more the it's more that moshy feel the whole time. You know, there's that. I hesitate to use the word groove because it's by no means like Pantera, but it has that. It makes you want to get a pit going where you're not going a million miles an hour. You're not slamming into people. You're not throwing people around. You're just going in a circle. You're doing a circle pit. You're just kind of, you know, moshing and dancing to the music. And then they have the fast parts, and then you go faster. You know, that style of music, and it's just really good. Vocalist fits well with the music. You know, there are some thrash bands the music is just killer, and the vocalist comes in, and to me then it gets ruined because they either they don't do it justice, or it just doesn't fit with the music. But this really fits well. And so, you know, like I said, they only had 2 albums, came and went. I'm assuming now all they really do is a few one-off tours and you know, guest spots on different thrash reunion tours or retro tours or whatever. Where I'm from, we get very few big shows, and when we do, it's usually the bands that American kids, American youth, and people think is heavy, like Stained and things like that, Asking Alexandria or whatever it's called. And by no means cutting them down. If you like that music, that's fine, and I can appreciate that. But for those of us that like the underground stuff more, that like the heavier edge stuff, the stuff that has, in my opinion, a little more integrity, it's not about the pretty vocals. It's not about putting your emotions on a plate. It's more about just frickin' balls out, putting your head in a vice, and just twisting until your frickin' brains are oozed out of your ears. That's what I look for when I listen to a good thrash album or a good death metal album. I want it to crush. I want it to just bombard me. I don't want to feel good about myself by the time the record's over. I want to feel like I've relieved myself of some anger or frustration or stress or whatever it is. That's what I want to feel when I listen to a thrash album. And Destruction and Mayhem definitely does that. So I would recommend that band, checking them out. Go to YouTube. I will put links to the band has a Facebook page. I will put that in the description on this video. I'll also put a link to D.A.M Records on the description as well, so you can hit Matt up. Matt is also on Facebook himself. I think it's Matthew Radinsky, but I would go with D.A.M. You can search it yourself on Facebook and find him. It's his personal Facebook page. So D.A.M Records would probably be the way to go. So I will put those links on there. And then if you guys have any other information that you want to share in the comments, as far as any other info you have about the band, any info about any tours or shows they're doing, upcoming shows, please add that. I by no means am the end-all be-all authority on this stuff, so I always welcome any comments as far as anything else that you know that I might have skipped over. So anyway, Destruction and Mayhem, check them out. Again, Inside Out, 1991, really good thrash. If I had to recommend a song right off the top of my head, the House of Cards was really good. And then there's also Thought for a Day was really good, and My Twisted Mind was really good. Not all of them go a million miles an hour, but they were good tracks. Human Wreckage, 1990, Noise Records. To recommend any on that album, Death Warmed Up. It starts with a song called MAD. I'm assuming that's Mutually Assured Destruction, because you know this was the 80s. This was in the middle of the Cold War. Death Warmed Up is really good. Left to Rot was a really great song as well. And then the Human Wreckage song, which they did a video for, which I will probably, if I post this on Facebook, this video, I'll probably put a link as well for the video for this as well. So anyway, thanks for watching, and be tuned in for more videos about different bands that slip through the cracks, either past or present. Have a good day.